got the pre-advised questions from the general public. Maybe Mr. Taylor has a question or questions.
Well, I'd like to use this opportunity you give to the public to contribute to your meetings to just make a statement to lobby you to not really to ask questions which are seeking answers. Now, later on your agenda, you've been asked to update your terms of reference. I think what's being suggested here is that you formalise the removal of the magistrates from the Community Safety Partnership. I think today's papers don't really make the history clear, because as recently as February last year, the magistrates were on the membership list. Now, I think it's clear that the magistrates are a missing element here. You've got the police, you've got probation or its replacement, and you don't have the magistrates. We know that magistrates are not participating locally in deliberation, scrutiny of matters that the panel, that the partnership discuss. They're not involved in scrutiny of the council's neighbourhood resolution partnerships. We're not seeing them doing any public scrutiny of out-of-court settlements, which is something that is happening elsewhere in the country. So they're not as involved in public civic life, debate and discussion in Cambridge as they are elsewhere. As I've commented here at the partnership previously, they're also not operating very openly and publicly. We don't have court lists and registers that are easily accessible. We just have the notice board brief list up in the way in the magistrates' court. So I'd just like to urge you to consider that when you come to refining your list of, or reapproving your list of members. You've said in the past that the magistrates don't turn up, and for some unexplained reason you said it's impossible for them to be here. It's one of the reasons. Now, I think it'd be perfectly reasonable to have them here, have an empty chair, and that would help those people who are lobbying for magistrates to take a greater, more public role if you did that, and it might even encourage them to turn up and to send somebody. I'd like just to make, on a separate point, when you had the domestic violence report, something we had there is we had a table of police reported crime and police recorded crime. Now, I think those are two different things. When we hear the police explain why there are increases in particular types of crime, sometimes they explain it by saying these are crimes that the police themselves reported. Particularly when they're explaining the increase in drug crime, they say, well, we did more work on drugs, therefore we ourselves proactively reported more crime than resulted in getting recorded. Now, I have agonised over whether I'm complaining about minor typos in your table, but I don't think I am, because I think there is an important point. If a distinction is made between those two things, it would help those of us who are trying to understand why there are increases in violent crime and domestic violent crime, if we could have that better breakdown. I think if as we have the explanation for drugs, if we've got something similar for domestic violence, it would be interesting to have that breakdown. Another very quick point on, again, I hope this isn't just being picky about the language, but when you've got a priority of titled personal acquisitive crime and you have a burglary target within that, I think that's misleading and it's quite difficult to interpret. I think it's not very useful when elements of the public sector use terms which are contrary to their plain English interpretation and also contrary to the interpretation used elsewhere. So Home Office statistics, if we've got personal acquisitive crime, we don't include burglary. Here at the Community Safety Partnership, you do include burglary under personal acquisitive crime. It just makes following what you're doing harder than it needs to be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those points. We'll pick them up as we go along on the agenda. So,
Richard Taylor mentioned earlier about the removal of the magistrates. We had a letter, Richard, that we'd received previously from one of the CSP board meetings saying that they were not able to become the members any longer of the partnership. And I can send that to you if you would like.
we also have a question about whether or not we would have magistrates as an empty chair. Louise and Linda have told us that, and actually the correspondence has been with the Community Safety Partnership, that actually we've had a pretty firm response back from the magistrates, clearly not going to turn up.
Can I say this? I mean, my understanding is that they are severely constrained, because I wanted them to be part of the community forum on domestic violence. and they were really knowledgeable. They were here on our development day. They were really knowledgeable on the issue, and they would have really added a great contribution, but they could not, they are unable to, because they have to be so careful about not being compromised in any way at all. So they're out of time, so that was my
So,
impression.
I think just from the non-response, I would take it that, you know, we do know with regret that they're not here, but we have taken them off the terms of reference. So with those three amendments, are people happy to agree?